Have you ever felt that kind of fatigue? You know, the one that's just bone deep. The kind where you get a full night's sleep, but it doesn't matter. You feel like your internal battery is just busted. Well, today we're going to dive deep into the very cells of your body to figure out what's going on and explore a really fascinating way to potentially fix it. So get a load of this quote: your mitochondrial electron transport chain is likely broken. That's a huge statement, right? It's basically saying the problem isn't about sleep hygiene or not enough coffee. It suggests something is fundamentally broken inside your body's tiny little energy factories. So what does that even mean? Let's unpack it. All right, so let's talk about this cellular energy crisis. For millions of people, this isn't just about feeling a little sleepy. Nope. It's a constant daily struggle where it feels like you're moving through life in slow motion. To make this real, let's imagine a guy we'll call Alex. Alex goes to the doctor, they run all the usual tests, thyroid, iron, all of it. And guess what? Everything comes back perfectly normal. But for Alex, every single day feels like he's dragging his feet through wet cement. This story is so common for people with chronic fatigue syndrome, and it usually points to a problem deep inside their cells. To really get this, we've got to zoom in, way in, to the mitochondria. You've probably heard of them as the power plants of our cells, and that's exactly what they are. Your brain cells alone have thousands of them. Their one big job? Take the food you eat and the oxygen you breathe and convert it all into a molecule called ATP. And you can think of ATP as like the dollar bill of energy for your body. It powers literally everything. So if the mitochondria are our power plants, what happens when the power grid inside those plants goes down? Well, that's where the whole system starts to fall apart. You see, inside every one of these power plants is a super important assembly line. It's called the electron transport chain, or ETC for short. And this is where the real magic happens. It's the final, and I mean most crucial step for making that ATP energy. Okay, so here's how it's supposed to work. You've got electrons, these little packets of energy from your food that hop onto the assembly line. They get passed from one protein worker to the next, and this little molecule called CoQ10 acts like a shuttle bus, moving them along the line. Once they get all the way to the end, boom, their energy is used to crank out tons and tons of ATP. But here is the problem. This incredibly delicate machinery can get damaged. The main culprit? Something called oxidative stress. The best way to think about it is like biological rust forming on the machinery. And this rust can cause those first few workers on the assembly line to just completely break down. And when that happens, the entire process just grinds to a halt. And the result of that breakdown? It is staggering. A damaged electron transport chain can basically slap your system with a massive metabolic tax, causing your energy production to plummet by as much as 70%. Seriously, 70%. It's no wonder people feel so completely wiped out. Their body is literally in a brownout. But what if there was a way to reset the whole system? You know, a way to get that assembly line moving again, even if some of the parts are rusty and broken. And that brings us to this really fascinating idea. Instead of trying to fix the rusty machinery, which could take forever, what if you could just build a workaround? A little bypass for your cells. And this is where a surprisingly old compound enters the picture: methylene blue. Now, methylene blue is not your average supplement. It's a synthetic compound, and it's been around for over 140 years. Its special trick is that it can act as an alternative electron carrier. In plain English, that means it can pick up those little energy packets, the electrons, and move them around, basically doing the job of the broken parts of that assembly line. So, how in the world does this bypass actually work? Let's take a closer look at the mechanism and see how it gets that energy flowing again. This visual really lays it out perfectly. Over on the left, you've got the problem, right? The normal path for electrons is totally blocked by that rusty, damaged machinery. Everything gets backed up. But then look at the right. You see the methylene blue solution. It creates a shortcut, grabbing those electrons before they hit the roadblock and zipping them straight to the end of the line. And just like that, energy production can start back up. To get a tiny bit more technical, what methylene blue does is it grabs electrons right at the very start of the chain. Then it completely bypasses the broken worker stations. We're talking complexes 1, 2, and 3. It's like an express shuttle bus that just flies right over the traffic jam and drops its passengers, the electrons, off at the final station. And the result? The assembly line starts humming again and ATP production is back online.
So, back to our guy, Alex. What did this mean for him in the real world? It was life-changing. After starting on a very careful protocol, his energy levels, which were stuck at a miserable 3 out of 10, shot up to a 9 out of 10. And this happened within days. This wasn't just feeling a little better. For him, it was like someone flipped the power switch back on for his entire life.
Okay, now this all sounds absolutely incredible, I get it. But it is so important to understand this is not something to just mess around with. There's a very specific way to approach this, and even more importantly, there is a non-negotiable safety red line. So the protocol has a few key steps. It starts with a very low dose based on your body weight. Purity is also absolutely essential. We're talking pharmaceutical grade only. But the most critical step, and I really cannot stress this enough, is to make 100% sure you are not taking any kind of antidepressant medication. From there, it's all about carefully monitoring how your body is responding, especially your physical stamina and energy.
And here it is, the absolute red line, the most important safety warning in this entire explainer. Methylene Blue is what's known as a monoamine oxidase inhibitor, or an MAOI. You do not combine it with other drugs that affect serotonin, like common antidepressants. It is extremely, extremely dangerous.
And why is it so dangerous? Well, it can trigger a condition called serotonin syndrome. This is essentially a toxic overload of serotonin in your brain. It's a full-blown medical emergency. We're talking severe confusion, agitation, dangerously high fevers, and blood pressure that goes haywire. This condition can absolutely be fatal. This is not a warning you can afford to ignore. So, we end with this pretty wild thought. Isn't it fascinating that a compound that's over 140 years old, originally made to be a simple dye, could hold such a sophisticated, modern key to unlocking one of the most stubborn and debilitating conditions of our time? It really makes you wonder what else we have yet to discover about the future of our own cellular health.